Are tender, fall-off-the-bone beef short ribs braised in a red wine sauce something you would love to serve for dinner? Hi friends, this is Heather the Fed Up Foodie, and these ribs are amazing for holidays or family dinners with these easy steps. You will want to start with English-style cut short ribs, ideally with the bone, if at all possible. Not only does this cut of meat already have amazing flavor on its own, the rib bones add even more depth of flavor. Many people prefer these ribs without the silver skin attached. However, it really does come down to a personal preference as to whether to remove it. The silver skin lies on the same side as the bones. I used an old steak knife to help lift the edge and then used my hands to peel the remaining skin. The next steps are to cut the ribs into smaller portions, dry them with paper towels, and then salt and pepper. As far as salting, if you have the time, let the salted ribs sit in the refrigerator overnight. It's not a huge deal if you don't have the time. However, salting in advance allows time for the salt to thoroughly penetrate this thicker cut of meat. Heat a Dutch oven or large stainless steel skillet pan over medium-high heat with a high-heat oil like avocado oil. Working in batches, sear the ribs on all sides. The reason searing is so vital to preparing these ribs is because it builds amazing flavor. Browning the ribs over fairly high heat caramelizes the natural sugars in the meat, which adds deep flavor to the braise. Once the searing is complete, remove all but 2 to 3 tablespoons of the grease. The easiest way to do this is to use a gravy ladle. Tilt the Dutch oven slightly and scoop the grease with the ladle. Transfer to an empty pickle jar and let cool before closing with the lid. Once full, dispose of the jar. Keeping the Dutch oven on the same medium-high heat, add the roughly chopped onion, carrots, and celery. Sauté for approximately 5 to 7 minutes and then add in the garlic and tomato paste. You will want to continue sautéing until the vegetables are coated and turn a deep red color, about 5 minutes. At this point, stir in the red wine and beef broth. Carefully snuggle the ribs back into the broth and add in fresh rosemary and bay leaves. If you're new to braising, it sounds like a very fancy cooking term, but it's incredibly easy to do. It is simply cooking the seared meat in broth with low indirect heat, in other words, in the oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Halfway through braising, remove the ribs from the oven and turn over. This will just ensure that all surfaces will have their fair share of being submerged in the broth. Once flipped, place the ribs back in the oven to finish braising. You will know the ribs are done because they'll be fall off the bone tender. At this point, the braising liquid is going to be rich and luxurious. However, it does need to be strained through a fine mesh strainer and then reduced. One of the best tips I can give about making this meal and lowering the fat content is to make this the day before serving. In doing so, you will proceed with the same steps. However, refrigerate the ribs separately from the braising liquid. The next day, the fat will rise to the surface and solidify, making it very easy to remove. If serving on the same day, the other option is to use a gravy ladle and carefully skim the fat off the surface. However, this method is not as successful at removing a significant amount of fat. Once the braising liquid has reduced, or reheated if serving the following day, place the ribs back in the liquid to warm for serving. These melt-in-your-mouth ribs taste amazing on mashed potatoes, creamy polenta, or buttered noodles. For more recipes like this and for weekly inspiration, make sure to head on over to thefedupfoodie.com and sign up for my newsletter where I share recipes and tips in helping to make cooking from scratch approachable.